Hey everyone, it's Chase Chappell and we're in week 2, module 3, Add Versatility. We'll be going over some very important information today, so we need to make sure to complete the action items today in order to complete phase 2. We're going to cover the steps we must take for testing multiple add variants and variations that will last, especially adds that will last over a greater period of time. So in the future, we won't have to make as many changes and we can just let the ads run and generate results. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to start off with knowing the number of add variants necessary for testing. Then we need multiple add variants within each ad set. Then how to make sure your add variants can universally be placed anywhere. We will then cover the ways we can duplicate ad engagement and stack social proof to the moon. Then at the end, we will cover ad naming conventions so you can keep everything organized during the testing period. So this is where the structure of the campaigns, ad sets, and ads really start to come together. It will set the tone for results moving forward, and it is going to bring more opportunities to you so you can identify what is generating results and what is not generating results, which ultimately will give you a greater chance of creating an ad that just brings you huge ROIs every single month. If you don't get these things right initially, then moving forward you're not going to have as high of a chance in finding an ad that is super successful, and there won't be any longevity to your audiences or ads, so it's important that we focus and implement these things today. We are going to be covering phase 2, part 2, where we are setting up and testing multiple ad variants, so now it is time to get started. Here's where we are right now. We are in testing phase 2, and like I said before, this is part 2 of phase 2, which is testing our actual ads. You should have already completed phase 1 and completed phase 2, part 1, which is setting up your campaign, ad sets, selecting automatic placements, choosing your conversion window, and you should have created a control audience with your lookalikes. Now you should be on this video, which is where we create all of the ads that are going to be inside each audience ad set, which your ad sets have been created from the previous video lesson, Ad Set Optimality. Now it's time to cover the ad versatility today, which includes the ad variants we are going to start off with. So we're creating ads and we're going to be testing single images, headlines, descriptions, call to actions, newsfeed link description, landing page link, display link, and we'll test everything. Emojis, no emojis, long copy, short copy, link in description, no link in description. Then the reason we want to test single images is because single images universally can be used on any placement. If you're going to test video, test landscape, as it can universally be used on any placement as well. What I mean by universally is that it will work on stories, Instagram, Facebook feeds, Messenger, WhatsApp, and the list goes on. It just means that it can show in a lot more places than having portrait shots can. Then you should know your objective is, if it is to get leads, then use Learn More call to action button. If it is to get purchases, use Shop Now or Learn More button. You can test other call to action buttons, but these are the ones we have found to be best for consultants, coaches, fitness companies, real estate, restaurants, apps, agencies, e-commerce, health industry, and the list goes on. These call to actions will save you money on testing, as most other call to actions are no good. And you can confirm this by going on Facebook or Instagram and trying to find an ad, and believe me, the only ones you're going to see are going to be the Learn More and Shop Now call to actions, as those are just constant winners, not only from our findings, but over the years, everyone else's too. So let's take a look at the ad variant structure and the build out. 30 ad variants. That's how many variations you'll want and you'll need to complete for testing. We don't want more than 30 to test with right now. If you do more than 30, you're going to lower your reach and raise your cost, and it's even possible your ads might not run if your budget is not high enough. This is because the algorithm has to test each ad, and if you have way too many ads, it won't be able to complete the learning phase and get enough people to interact with your ads in a short enough time frame. So make sure you create no more than 30 ad variations, then you should also create no less. Now we're going to test 5 single images, 3 different ad text angles, and 2 different headlines. Now we want to test 5 different images because that is almost always the first thing that captures attention, and we want to have more options with the images we test, as this is one of the greater factors when gaining attention. Then we test 3 completely different ad text angles. We don't want similar text in each angle. First, we want to have 3 very different angles to begin with. The reason is we need to see which approach is going to work best with your messaging. So you could test an emotional text, which strikes a response with someone emotionally, or you could test educational, which might teach someone something or informs them about the product or service you offer. And then you could also teach something that highlights or test something that highlights competitiveness in your ad angle. It's up to you on the angles you decide to come up with, but we need to make sure that they are different. Finally, we will test 2 headlines, and we want to keep these short as we need to make sure they show up on your actual ads and don't actually run off the screen. A lot of times people will make their headlines way too long, and I'll show you an example here pretty soon. Now, this is an example of where we can create an outline of our 30 ad variants. And so we can make sure we don't get confused or mess up anything in our ad account. We can first organize everything here and then copy and paste it into each ad variant we create on our Facebook ad account. This document is attached below, so go ahead and download it and let's take a look at this. So there's 2 actual sheets. One is 30 ad variants, and then we have example, and this is where you're actually going to build out your first 30 ad variants. The first thing we want to do is you want to upload all of your images into Google Drive and your videos, and just go ahead and once you upload those, just make them a share link, and then share the actual image link in this row. And then on the ad text, that is actually the body copy of the ad goes here, long or short description text above the image of the ad. This is going to be the main text that shows, so make sure that you go ahead and type that out here. And then the headline, the main headline on your ad, that is actually the bolder text, the main headline that you'll see on an ad. It's usually right next to your call to action. Then the newsfeed link description, a lot of times people don't see this, but most of the time you can actually get this to show on any placement if you just make sure it's short enough. So it's a small text below headline of your actual ad. And then the landing page link you're going to test. And here's an example of what a build out for me looked like, and you can use this for you as well. Just go ahead and replace this information. So in order to get to 30 ad variants, we have our images right here, and then we're going to have our 3 ad text. And then we're going to have our 3 headlines, or our 2 headlines, which is, here's 2. And then we have 3 ad text on each one. And then we have the newsfeed link description, which actually isn't going to change. You can go ahead and just type in your newsfeed link description. I would keep it pretty short. Make sure it's not too long. And then the landing page link you're going to test. And so that ends up coming out to 30 ad variants once you actually implement all of these. So make sure you do that because this is super important. All right, so now once you complete the 30 ad variants worksheet, make sure to watch the video on how to implement your 30 ad variants into each ad set below. Now we're going to cover the benefits of having one ad variant being tested in multiple ad sets. So to start off, to find the best winning ad, we're going to need to test it within multiple ad sets, so we can see how each ad variant performs in different audiences. If one specific ad is getting amazing results in each audience ad set you created, then that is a very good sign that you probably have an ad that is a winner, not only now, but over the long term too. Let me say that again. If you have an ad that is performing well in every single audience, it's very likely that that is not only going to be a winner, but it's going to be a winner over the long term. And that's good because you want something that will last a lot longer. Now, the second thing is testing an ad variant in multiple ad sets. It speeds up the process and the testing process as we have multiple audiences and a large amount of ad spend going towards each individual ad variant. Therefore, testing should take no longer than 14 days. In order for us to identify what ads are working, as long as you have all those ad sets set up, the amount of money that's being spent on each ad, you should be able to identify which ads are working and which ones are not. Some ad variants are going to perform better in different audience ad sets, and that is totally okay, because even if it is getting good results in one audience, but it's not getting good results in the other ones, just leave that ad that is performing really well on in the audience that it's working in. There's no reason to turn it off there, but if it's not performing in other audiences, just don't leave it on, turn it off. There's no reason to turn off a good ad in one audience and then leave it on in another audience if it's performing bad. Make sure you check each ad set individually. That is why we are testing. We want to see which ad variants work across the board and which ad variants work in only a few audiences and which ads don't work, period. Now we are going to cover the anatomy of creating universal ads. So a universal ad has text that is no longer than 1,500 characters. That is because you can't get an Instagram placement unless it is shorter than 1,500 characters. And then we have an ad image or video, and that needs to be landscape and high quality. And we want landscape because it can be placed pretty much on all social media feeds and placements. You can use landscape photo by downsizing it onto stories. Facebook actually does that automatically for you. If you use portrait video or images, that can be placed on a lot of placements too, but the problem with that is it ends up making your ad way too long, and it will actually run off most screens and devices. And you don't want that, because you want your call to action and your headline visible. And if your portrait shot of a video or an image is way too tall, nobody's going to see your call to action, and that ends up making your ad irrelevant. So the next thing is your display link should just be your website.com. Whatever your website is, that's it. You put that into your display link. Never use www before it or HTTPS on your display link, because your display link is something that people notice instantly. And you want people to see the display link without the www, HTTPS, all that stuff. Nobody's typing that in, and it also just makes your ad look more cluttered, and it just doesn't look good. And if people see your ad, a lot of times what they'll do is they might not even click on it, they'll just go search it. And if they search your ad by typing in your website domain, they're not going to type it in if they see all that www.http or HTTPS stuff in front of it. You just want your domain there so somebody can easily read it and easily type it in their actual URL to search it. So don't make anything that's super long. That is just confusing and hard to read on your ad. Then we need to keep your newsfeed link description super short, otherwise it will run off your ad. And the same goes for your headline. And don't worry, I'm going to show you an example and a video on how to do this below, so make sure you watch that video lesson to see how. Then we are going to want to also duplicate ad engagement, because having engagements on your ads gives you more social proof and credibility. It's better to have an ad with social proof than no social proof at all. Then when you have the same ad variant running in different audience ad sets, your engagement will add up more quickly, giving you social proof early on. Now, the best way to duplicate ad engagements is by using ad post IDs. Each of your ads have a unique ID to them, so this method will ensure all engagements go to the same ad, and it will prevent you from losing ad engagements from editing, because it's not going to allow you to edit once you actually start duplicating your ad ID engagements. And if you don't know what an ad post IDs are, that's okay. I have a video link below on how you can implement that, but it's very important we do this also because all of your ads are going to start compounding over time. When you have them in multiple audiences, you're just going to send a lot more people to the same ads in different audiences, which raises your social proof, which is great. Now we are covering ad naming conventions. So you can title your ads very easily. That way you can easily identify each ad variant and also know instantly what the ad is and how it's performing. So it's important to keep your ads organized, otherwise you're going to create a ton of problems for yourself, and it will also be too hard for us to identify what is working and not working when you reach out for help. So make sure you choose a format and use it. So here are some examples. And I use these naming conventions, and the reason you see colons in between each of them is because that allows for you to fit more text into each ad name so it does not get super long. Trust me, I've figured this stuff out, and this is like the most concise way of shortening it, but also not keeping it too short to where you just don't even understand what it looks like. I've seen naming conventions where it's like literally numbers and just letters, and you don't even understand what the hell it means. So it's very important that you keep it short, but not too short. So we have add text line 1, and then the image name. The second one is add text line 1, image 1, headline 1, and then the next one adds call to action at the end, and then the final one adds your landing page. So here's an example of how to name your ad so you can quickly identify which ad it is without having to open it. So I use the second naming convention, add text line 1, image 1, headline 1, and you can see the ad to the right. So since I'm using add text line 1, image 1, headline 1, I would name it run an agency. Then for the image, I would just put teaching, as that is what I'm doing. Then I put free FB for the headline, as in my headline I'm stating I'm giving out a free proven Facebook ad system. Now you don't have to complicate the naming process, just keep it short, and for the images you don't need anything fancy words to name it. Just put the first word down that comes to mind of what the image is. Don't overthink this. Now here's the naming convention broken down further so you can visually see how to name your ads. So you can see run an agency is just the very first line from my ad text. That is why it is called add text line 1. Then you can see I put teaching for the image, and I am teaching. And then the headline, free Facebook, because in my headline, that's also there, and it is short. You might be wondering why I did not use the first naming convention or the third one or the fourth one, and the reason for that is because I'm only testing these 3 variables. I already know my learn more call to action button performs best, so I'm not going to use that naming convention. And I already know what landing page performs best, so I'm not going to use that naming convention. Now, if you want to test call to actions in landing pages, just use the naming conventions 3 and 4 so you can identify them quickly to see how their performance is doing compared to the other one. Let's do a quick recap of everything that we covered here on this video lesson today. We covered the number of ad variants necessary for testing, which is 30 ad variants, nothing higher. Why we need multiple ad variations within each ad set, because we can test faster and get social proof sooner. How to make sure your ad variants can universally be placed anywhere. We do this by making sure we keep things high quality, landscape, and short. Duplicating ad engagement and stacking social proof to the moon so we can get more credibility. And finally, ad naming conventions so we can stay organized, and that way you can identify performing ads very quickly. So that's it for this video. Make sure to complete the action items below and make sure to watch the video lessons below so you can see how we implement most of these things in the actual Facebook Business Manager. So make sure to do that. It's important. All right, so thanks for watching. This should complete phase 2 in testing for you, and we are now done with week 2. Congratulations, and we are going into week 3. So once again, thank you, and I will see you in week 3.